Go ahead and get started. Planning Commission meeting for February 22nd to order. I want to welcome everybody, and Commissioners, always good to see you again. And we'll get going on the agenda. And so our first item is to adopt the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt? Which was, before we make a motion, it was sent out prior. And is there a motion to adopt? Motion to adopt in a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. Next is item C, which is the approval of the February 8th, 2024 minutes, which were also sent out earlier and posted. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes? There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the minutes are adopted. Next is the recognition of the council members under item D, and we take these as we see y'all come in. And so, Councilor Hancock, I saw you first. Where's she at? Where's the council lady? I just saw her. Where did she go? We'll come back to council lady. Councilor Cortez, you want to go now or? Okay. All right. Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate it. Next, and then when Councilor Hancock comes in, we'll... Oh, is she here? There we... Councilor Hancock, do you want to go right now? You want to... You're going to wait? Okay. All right. We just want to make sure we take care of the council members. We love you all very much. And so now we're on to... well, before we do the items for deferral withdrawal, I just want to say if everybody would try to please silent your phones, because everybody, when they speak, if we have an interruption, it interrupts the speaker, and we want to be fair to all the speakers. So we really appreciate everybody doing that. So our next item is item E, which is items for deferral withdrawal, and I think Amelia is going to take us through that. Amelia?
Yes, items for deferral or withdrawal tonight. Starting on page 3 of the agenda, item number 1, 2023 CP 003-005, Bordeaux, Whites Creek, Haynes Trinity Community Plan Amendment. Staff recommendation is defer to March 14th. Item number 2, 2015 SP 013-005, Stevens Valley SP Amendment. Staff recommendation is defer to March 28th. On page 4 of your agenda, item number 3, 2022 SP 021-001, Burke Hampstead. Staff recommendation is defer indefinitely. Item number 4, 2023 SP 086-001, The Collective. Staff recommendation is defer indefinitely. Item number 5, 2023 S197001, Vaughn Subdivision. Staff recommendation is deferred to the March 14th meeting. Item number 6, 2024 S016001, Re-subdivision of Gwill Heights. Staff recommendation is deferred to March 28th. Item number 7, 2024 Z001 PR 001, staff recommendation is deferred to March 14th. On page 5 of your agenda, item number 12, 2024 SP 006-001, Buena Vista Pike, staff recommendation is deferred to March 14th. And on page 6 of your agenda, item number 14, 2024 S025001, Madison Station. Staff recommendation is deferred to the March 14th meeting.
Thank you. And so we'll go through these slowly so we make sure we get all of the items for deferral withdrawal correct. And so the following items are for items for deferral or withdrawal. Item number 1, item number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, and 14. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, Commissioners, you've heard the items for deferral withdrawal. Is there a motion? There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and those items are deferred or withdrawn. Now we are on to item F, which is the consent agenda. Amelia would take us through that again, through it.
Yeah. As noticed to the public, items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. So I'll go through every item and ask if anyone is here in opposition. If you are in opposition and would like the item to be heard, please raise your hand and we will identify that item as to be presented. If no one is in opposition to the item, it will remain on the consent agenda. Starting on page 5 of your agenda, item number 9, 2024Z009PR001. This is a request to rezone along West Due West Avenue. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 10, 2024Z002TX001. This is a text amendment related to historic signage. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 11, 2024 SP001-001, 310 Donaldson Pike. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. On page 6 of your agenda, item number 13, 2024 S014001. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 15, 2024 S030001, Old Clarksville Pike. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 16, 2024 Z014PR001. This is a request to rezone along Heights Ferry Road. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the agenda to be heard. Item number 17, 2024 Z015PR001. This is a request to rezone along Cloverland Drive. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? Okay. This item is on the agenda to be heard. Continuing on page 7 of your agenda, item number 18, 2024 Z016PR001. This is a request to rezone along Rio Vista Drive. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. Item number 19, 2024 Z020PR001, a request to rezone along Robertson Avenue. Is anyone here in opposition to this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. So now I will read through all of those items on the consent agenda with our full caption. As information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Planning Commission today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of entry of the Planning Commission's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact independent legal counsel. Our items on the consent agenda tonight, starting on page 5, item number 9, 2024 Z009PR001. This is a request to rezone from OG to MUL for property at 605 West Due West. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item number 10, 2024 Z002TX001. This is a request to amend Title 17 related to historic signage. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item number 11, 2024 SP001-001, 310-312 Donaldson Pike. This is a request to rezone from R10 and CL to SP for properties along Donaldson Pike to permit 41 multifamily residential units. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. And I would like to note that Commissioner Smith is recused on that item. On page 6 of your agenda, item number 13, 2024 S014001, resubplat part of Lot 1 of Block H Hermitage Edition. This is a request for a final plat to shift lot lines for properties along Fain Street. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions including exceptions to Section 3 of the subdivision regulations. Item number 15, 2024 S030001, Old Clarksville Pike. This is a request for a final plat to create 3 lots and remove reserve status on properties along Eaton's Creek Road and Old Clarksville Pike. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions including variances to Section 4 of the subdivision regulations. Item number, and on page 7 of your agenda, item number 18, 2024Z016PR001. This is a request to rezone from RS 7.5 to R8 for properties along Rio Vista Drive. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item number 19, 2024Z020PR001. This is a request to rezone from R8 to RM15A and S. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions. Under item H, other business, item number 20, downtown code initiatives in 2024 memo, and item 24, to accept the director's report and approve administrative items.
Thank you,
may
Amelia.
have a
Lisa, do you have something to add?
Also, item number 16, and we can get confirmation. Someone indicated that they were in opposition. This is actually the applicant, and so she is not in opposition. And so I don't know if you want to ask again, and we can put that one back on consent.
Yeah, so on item number 16.
That's the rezoning on Hydes Ferry Road. There's no one in opposition. Is there anyone in opposition?
Any opposition?
Yeah.
And y'all are the applicant?
Yeah.
Okay. It's fine to be here for the first time. It is a little confusing sometimes on how we do the meeting. So we appreciate y'all coming down, and thank you for clarifying that. We appreciate it, guys. Thank you. All right. So is there a motion to put item number 16 back on the, so there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. And item 16 is back on the consent agenda to be passed.
And we'll have Amelia read in the recommendation on that one, if
Yeah.
that's okay.
Go ahead, Amelia.
Yep. Item 16, back on our consent agenda, 2024Z014PR001, a request to rezone from RS10 to R10 for property along Hydes Ferry Road. Staff recommendation is to approve.
Thank you. And so, commissioners, you've heard the items for the consent agenda, but we'll go through them and Amelia, make sure that these are correct because we'll pass all these together. So the following items are on the consent agenda. Items number 9, 10, 11, 13, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20, and 24. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, commissioners, you've heard the items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt? There's a motion in a second. Second, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. And those items have been passed on the consent agenda. So, with that said, we're on items G, which is the items to be considered tonight. And we're considering 2 items, items number 8 and 17. Is that correct, Director?
Yes.
Okay. We'll let everybody kind of clear out quickly. We appreciate it. And then we'll do the presentation on... Well, no, we're going to do an update on item number 8 because, and so here, so commissioners, item number 8, we've already had the public hearing. The public hearing is closed. We're getting an update. I think that we asked for some more community input at the last meeting, and so Donald is going to give us an update on item 8.
All right, good afternoon. This is item 8 on your agenda. I'm Donald Anthony with the Planning Department. The request is to rezone a 2.2 acre property at 99 Thompson Lane from R10 to OR20A and S. Staff recommends approval. This request was previously reviewed by the Planning Commission on January 11th, and a public hearing was held and closed at that time. To recap, the property is currently zoned R10. It's in the Airport Impact Overlay District, the I-440 Impact Overlay District, and the Urban Zoning Overlay District. Subject property has frontage on 3 sides: Thompson Lane on the north, Dobbs Avenue on the west, and Wingate Avenue on the east. The site is in the South Nashville Community Planning Area, and the applicable policy is urban transition. The transition policy is intended to enhance and create areas that can serve as transitions between higher intensity uses or major thoroughfares and lower density residential neighborhoods while providing opportunities for small scale offices and or residential development. Staff evaluated the rezoning request previously to determine whether it was consistent with the transition policy and determined that the OR20A and S district would provide an appropriate transition between the Thompson Lane corridor and the residential properties south of the corridor. You may remember that at the public hearing for this item, there was concern from the neighbors about vehicle rentals on the site. We did consult with the zoning administrator, who advised that if the rentals do not involve an attendant or any actual physical business transaction on the site, then the use would be classified as automobile parking, which is a permitted use in the OR 20A and S zoning district, as it is in most non-strictly residential zoning districts. We're also aware that since the last time this item appeared before the Planning Commission, the applicant held a meeting with neighbors, and we have received several letters of support for the rezoning request since that time. One of the other issues that came up during the hearing was the idea of possibly pursuing an SP, and the applicant has chosen not to do that at this time. Staff does, because the rezoning request is consistent with the transition policy, staff does recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. So commissioners, this item is not open for public hearing. We already held the public hearing. I don't believe there are a lot of new facts in this case, but we're ready for discussion. Stuart, you want to, Commissioner Clifton, be official, sorry. Commissioner Clifton. You want to start us?
I really don't have any major questions. Heard the explanations, read the reports, and I'm prepared to vote.
All right, any other discussion? Commissioner Tibbs?
Do you mind repeating one more time about the automobile parking? I'm sorry, just want to make sure I'm clear on what that is.
Right, so we talked with the zoning administrator. If you'll remember, in the past on this site, the applicant had leased space to a Tesla rental thing, and there's not an actual kiosk or attendant on the site. Instead, you would rent through an app, and then you utilize your phone to actually get into the Tesla and drive off. When we talked with the zoning administrator about this, he determined that he would not qualify that as vehicle rental, which is a classification within the zoning code. Vehicle rental has a fairly narrow group of zoning districts where it's permitted. Instead, the zoning administrator would classify that as automobile parking because there's no actual physical transaction taking place on the property. And so automobile parking is allowed in almost all of the non-strictly residential zoning districts.
Okay, but not for a car lot. I'm sorry to say it any other kind of way. That is prohibited.
Right, like auto sales, vehicle
Yeah.
rental, things like that would not be permitted in this particular zoning district.
Okay, I just want to be clear that cannot happen.
Council Lady.
Just one question, a follow-up to that. Do we know if the owner intends to use that lot as a parking? It is allowed, but do we know if that is the intention?
He may well be here and may be in a better position to answer that. It's my understanding from talking with the owner and the owner's representative that use is not taking place on the site right now and is not what they intend to do in the future, but he may be in a better position to answer that.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Commissioner Clifton.
was that not explicitly said at the last meeting as well?
It was, but we can ask the owner to come up and put it on the record. I think that's what we should do. Is the owner here? Yeah, come on up and let us. So, Council Lady, ask him the question when he turns the microphone on. That way we can get it on the record.
Thank you. Just want to clarify if parking the vehicles is what you intend to do on the lot.
No, ma'am, we are not planning such a business. We're mainly goal is the 23,000 square foot property rezoned for office residential, so we can use office use to the neighborhood or Nashville area.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that because that was one of the concerns from the neighbors. And although it is an allowable use, it would be nice to know
No, we want to keep
what's the
neighbors happy.
intention. Thank you.
And sir, if you could just state your name for and
Mehmet Altas.
address for the record.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, any other discussion? We'll need to have a motion. Somebody would. Council Lady?
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
That's a proper motion. Is there a second? Second. Any other discussion? Seeing none. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and this item is, staff recommendation is adopted. So, that brings us to item number 17. And before we get started on the public hearing, so a lot of you have been here before, and then I do know the councilman is new, and we'll get to him in a second. But we appreciate everybody coming down. But the process is we do the presentation, then we'll open the public hearing up. The applicant has 10 minutes to present. They can save 2 of the 10 minutes for rebuttal. Then we'll do everyone wishing to speak in support, everyone wishing to speak in opposition, the rebuttal, and then council member will have you go, and then we'll close the public hearing, and that's where the commissioners discuss it. I just want to make sure everybody knows the process, Councilman, and we'll take good care of you. I know you said you wanted to speak at the end of it. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do the presentation. Appreciate you guys coming down.
All right, I'm Dustin Shane, staff planner. Item 17 is a rezoning along Cloverland Drive. This is a request to rezone from R40, which is 1 and 2 family residential, to RS40, which is single family only residential. Our recommendation is to disapprove as submitted and approve with a substitute ordinance. Zoning in this neighborhood is R40, 1 and 2 family residential. And the policy, mostly T3 suburban neighborhood maintenance. Most of the adjacent neighborhoods are also in that policy. There's some conservation along streamways and a little bit of slope here and there, but mostly T3 neighborhood maintenance. Looking at this request, the surrounding uses are almost exclusively 1 and 2 family residential, variously zoned R20 and R40. There is an area of multifamily residential to the north, zoned RM4. We find that RS40 is partially consistent with the goals of the policy, which does call for preserving the current development pattern. But the policy also calls for allowing greater housing choice in the future if that were to develop. So we recommend a substitute that would remove certain types of parcels to preserve some of that potential in the future. And these parcels would be ones that are larger than average, corner lots, those along arterial roadways, and ones that are adjacent to higher intensity uses. So this would allow preservation of much of the character of the neighborhood, but also allow the mix of housing and limited change, which we expect all neighborhoods to experience to develop in line with the policy. So here's a list of the parcels that we've identified and a map. You'll see the ones in pink are the ones that we've identified to be removed with the substitute. So we recommend disapproving this request and then approving with a substitute. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And we'll open this item for public hearing. And Councilman, you're the applicant, so do you want to come up and speak first and then speak last? Yeah, come on up. Now, you know what we do with new council members.
I'm excited to find out.
We just listen. So it's good to have you. Welcome, and we appreciate you coming down.
Absolutely. Thank you all for what you do for the city. And I know even if we leave today not seeing eye to eye, I know you guys are here with the best intentions for the city, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for your service. I do want to say the planning department and Mr. Shane have been phenomenal to deal with, so thank you for that and your guidance through this. The reason for the application, so the Cloverland Acres neighborhood, they ran into a situation with a developer. The developer came in, bought a lot, and they went forward with a plan that was against their restrictive covenants. The community fought back, and they took him to court, and they won. Their concern, though, is that if another developer comes in, it becomes the Wild West. They're not going to have the resources to fight the same battle again. So they were looking for options. The two options we found were, one, a contextual overlay, or two, a downzoning. And we felt the downzoning was less restrictive, and it was also, it gave property owners it was a better option for property owners' rights. And one thing we really tried to be cognizant of was making sure that no one felt ostracized from the community, where if they wanted to take part, they could. If they didn't, they could opt out. And we also wanted to make sure that they felt that their property rights were being valued. So that's why we went forward with the down zoning. We went to great length to make sure that that communication was handled. Public meeting we held at the Edmondson Pike Library. We had countless community emails. I attended their fall celebration to talk to people one-on-one. We did a door knocking campaign. We left letters for those who did not answer the door, countless phone calls. And the time frame, this has been going on since my predecessor was in office, where he started these conversations with the community. Our goal today would be to move forward with the original application. I do understand there's certain policy that you must operate within, and I'm completely respectful of that. I would be willing to fully defer if you believe there is a middle ground that would honor property owners' rights and also the policy that you have to abide by. So we are open to those options if that's a possibility.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
And we'll, at the very end, we'll get you to come back up.
I did a choreographed dance. Would you like me to do that now, or?
That would, yes, do that. No. Yeah, do that at the wrap up. Yeah, we'll do that last.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's good to see you. Yeah, always last. No, we appreciate our council members. And the reason, I mean, we do a lot of zoning with the council members. And so we have to, the staff works with the council members and we do, and we have to work together. So it's important that we're together. All right. Anyone wishing to speak in support? And I guess that's in support of the substitute. Or actually, hold on one second. Yes, Director.
I think we do need to clarify. Lisa, would you recommend we seek comment in support of the substitute or the original application? Good question.
I would say,
But what we would typically do, I think, is the original application.
yes, I would say support is as filed. Opposition, yes, I would say,
Would be as filed.
yeah, I would say support is as filed, not as we have
not
proposed, yeah.
And so,
I'm in the right place.
hold on one second. So just explain that to everybody, what that means, so that we can get that on the record.
Sure. So if someone would like to speak in support of the application and the bill that has been filed, that the original application that includes all of the properties, then they would speak now in support of rezoning all of the properties to RS40.
Thank you, Lisa. All right. So you'll have 2 minutes, timer's right there, and just state your name and address for the record. So-
Okay, great, thank you. My name is Deborah Ham. I live at 6424 Cloverbrook Drive, right there. I would like just a slight bit of clarification. All of those properties are not included in the submission. We pulled out those where property owners specifically opted out or requested to opt out. So if that helps clarify it all. Our neighborhood, if you've never been out there, you would see it as one that's a real community. That is a lot of people that have recently moved in, but many people who have been there since houses were built in the 70s. We walk our dogs, we know each other by name, we support each other as community. All of the roads leading into Cloverland Acres on either side of Cloverland Drive are dead ends, one way in, one way out. And one of the things that we're real concerned about is, increasing density. Everybody trying to come in and out of that one entrance that has no traffic light, no way. It's really difficult as is, and increasing the density would be really difficult, I think. And just add more traffic to that main thoroughfare that isn't built for that. There are no shoulders, it's a 2-lane, and really no way even for emergency vehicles to get through there during heavy traffic times. So we would be real concerned about the safety of adding additional housing within our neighborhood. So that's our biggest concern. And just increasing the infrastructure would be almost astronomical, I fear. So I appreciate your time and listening to our concerns and listening to how we feel about keeping our neighborhood as it is. One more thing real quick, the back half of Cloverland is in Williamson County, which only allows single residence houses per lot. So we'd like to keep that all consistent.
Thank you, ma'am. Very good point. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming out. Anyone else wishing to speak in support? Come on up. And if y'all would line up behind the microphone, that would be great, if you want to speak. Thank you. State your name and...
My name is John
Yes.
David Scobie. I live at 6412 Cloverbrook Drive, which is parcel number 028 on the map, which was excluded from the initial zoning request. I'm totally in favor of the proposal as it was submitted to rezone to RS40 for all those of us that indicated we wanted. I respect those in our neighborhood that opted out, and we all know what we want our neighborhood to look like going forward. And I was going to address my individual property, but that's not appropriate. Did I understand that correctly? Why should I address my own property? Why I think it's wrong?
You can.
Okay. My neighbors on either side were included in the zoning request RS40 in the revision that I saw. Mine was excluded. I do have a corner lot, and what I read, that's kind of makes it appropriate for future development. My lot is smaller than either of those two properties adjacent to mine. When I looked at the 10 closest properties to mine in our neighborhood, mine was the smallest of all of them. Not by much, but mine was the smallest. So I feel like that's not appropriate, and I'd like to be included anyway. My lot's pie-shaped, and it has a deep slope in the back, and really not good for future development. So I would ask you to reconsider that.
Thank you. Oh, hold on one second, ma'am. Commissioner Clifton, you wait. Yeah, that's appropriate. All right. Go ahead.
My name is Betsy Stubblefield, and I live at 5711 Clover Hill Drive. I have to have notes. So I looked at the T3 suburban maintenance plan as listed on the planning department's proposal, and it says efforts should be made to retain the character of the existing neighborhood. That's the way I interpret it. Retaining the character of this neighborhood would be keeping primarily single-family dwellings on all but a handful of lots, not a third of them. Our subdivision is our green space. It's a park, and we have mature trees and grassy yards and lots of wildlife. And I think coming in and making a whole bunch of lots available for duplexes is going to disrupt that to some extent. They're going to take down those mature trees to build the houses. I think diversity is in the eye of the beholder. And there's a lot of diversity in housing types along Cloverland Drive. There are 2 large senior living complexes, a very large apartment complex, the new Cali subdivision, which has really small lots, maybe OSRD. Fredericksburg, Brownstone, Copperfield, Sterling Oaks, Oakmont are all developments with much smaller lots along Cloverland Drive. There are townhome and condo developments along the south side of Old Hickory Boulevard, which is about a half mile to a mile from this area. Cloverland Hall condos on the corner of Old Hickory Boulevard and Cloverland Drive. I think we have the diversity of housing options. Looking at your mission statement, which in part in just one place says efficient use of public infrastructure. Cloverland Drive is designated as a traffic artery. It's an unimproved two-lane road, no shoulders, a bunch of curves, a few curves, several significant hills, no sidewalks, completely unsafe for bicycles and pedestrians. But, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I know the time flies when you're having fun at the Planning Commission, so good job. Welcome.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Tim Kozan, I live at 6417 Cloverland Drive. Been there about 3 years. It's the longest I've lived anywhere since I was 16 years old. And my wife and I were at the forefront of the legal battle for the case that we had against the developer that came in. Spent a lot of time and effort on that. And as other residents have stated, we gave everybody in the neighborhood the ability to choose whether they wanted to be rezoned or not. We chose to be rezoned to RS, and I understand and respect the laws and codes and things that you all have to go by. However, it's my property, and I think if I want to rezone it, I should be able to. That's all I have to say. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Ann Bowles. I live at 6425 Cloverbrook Drive. Everything I had intended to say, my neighbors have said much more eloquently than I can. But I just wanted to let you know that I'm the third generation to live in the house that I live in. And it's home to me. I know you all have a home and special memories and that kind of thing, but my house is one of the ones that has been selected as, the in the edited version by Mr. Shane. And I just ask that you all consider, and I just wanted to go on record that you agree with Mr. Cortez's original request for the RS40. It's a beautiful neighborhood. My grandchildren come play there, and we love it there, and we just feel like an inconsistency in, having a 6,000 square foot house, and then a 2,000 square foot house, and then a duplex, and then just up the road apartments. It's just getting so inconsistent, and we appreciate the consistency that we have now, so thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak in support? Come on up, and if you want to speak, if you all will line up behind the microphone, that'd be great. Go ahead.
Thank you. Bob Sanford, 6432 Cloverbrook Drive, right next to the property that was developed, was undeveloped now. I was sort of involved in the legal battle. We had to engage with the developer. The effort focused really on the place of our restrictive covenants and the place where the metro codes and the planning commissions and things seem to come in conflict. Our lawyer focused on the restrictive covenants, and the success depended on the validity of the restrictive covenants, the validity of the language of those, which would restrict a two-family dwelling to a duplex. Two structures on the building on the lot is not permitted. One structure is permitted up to a duplex. But one of the points that was made to the judge in the court case was that we're all single-family homes now, single-family homes, and that that should be honored for anything in the future. All the lots are developed as single-family homes. Tearing them down now would bring another kind of structure, namely the duplexes. But even that could be somewhat diminished in effect by the restrictive covenants. So I would only ask that the restrictive covenants be considered and on your decisions here as it affects the neighborhood development. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? All right, seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, Councilman, you want to finish us off?
It's a long walk.
It is a long walk. It is a long walk.
So a few points I'd like to touch on that I didn't in my first time up here. I think it would be fair to touch on my approach to zoning, my approach to how we can help overcome a lot of the obstacles that the city has. I do believe in adding density and diversity of housing, but doing it in an area strategically, making sure that we're not overloading the current infrastructure. There are areas in District 4 that are primed to add density, add diversity of housing. So that is an area where I look to do so with a lot of community input. I do think it's really important at this stage in Nashville's history and their journey that residents are included in that conversation on the growth. And this is every administration, every individual who's ever served since the city's been founded has a different approach, has a different skill set. So this isn't a knock to anybody. But there are a lot of residents in the city who feel they have not been a part of that growth. They haven't had a say in that growth. And they feel that their rights as property owners have been neglected, and their voice hasn't been heard. The areas in District 4 where you can add density, I'm having deep conversations with a lot of the community members, and they are for adding density. They just want their voices to be heard. And I think in this instance, it's a piece of the district where the infrastructure just isn't there, and adding density any more than we already have would really lower the quality of life for people who live there. We have, as a collar district, we experience a significant amount of out-of-county traffic, so our roads are servicing a large amount of drivers from Rutherford and Williamson County. And if you look at Cloverland during rush hour, it's a parking lot. So if you have emergency vehicles trying to get through, it creates a real issue. I had somebody they got off the interstate trying to get home the other night. They were stuck in Cloverland for 45 minutes. So adding density in this area, I don't think it's the right option, but there are areas in District 4 where I believe adding density and diversity of housing is the right thing to do. So I just want you to know I'm an ally in that respect, but I would just like to do it strategically so the community feels they're going along with this and that they're part of the conversation in a way where they feel their rights are being honored. And also, there was one of my constituents asked me to read this. Parcel 85 on Cloverland Drive is a long, skinny lot on which a large, expensive house is under construction, almost finished, and that was designated for planning and upzoning. Parcel 24 at the corner of Cloverland Place and Cloverbrook contains a new, recently built large house. Its yard has a very steep slope that goes down to the creek. That parcel is one that the planning department has designated for upzoning. So they had asked that I read that as well. But again, I'd be happy to defer if you need more time to think on it. I do believe there's a happy medium where we've already removed a significant amount of addresses from the original application. And if we added in the addresses who wanted to be included, I think it would balance that map out pretty considerably. So if there's a chance, I'm happy to defer it if you think there's a happy medium. But otherwise, I would request that you approve the initial application.
Thank you, Councilman. I think we'll discuss it, and then we'll let you know if we feel that way. We'll ask for your permission. We always work with the council members. All right, thank you, Councilman. Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Commissioner Smith, you want to go first?
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to thank the neighbors and the councilmen. It seems like y'all were very thorough and fair, and I appreciate the process and you all being involved. I'm torn on this one. I'm generally very much in sympathy of property rights, and I appreciate that the neighbors who wanted an opt-out got one. On the other hand, I'm hesitant to downzone almost anywhere. We don't allow property owners to upzone willy-nilly unless it meets the city's plans. So there is a little bit of give and take on both down and up. I'd like to clarify, we're not being asked to zone anything or upzone anything. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
I see on here that the zoning R40 has been in place since 1974. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I said, I'm fairly torn. I do think that staff has done good work and come up with what I think is a happy medium and compromise. And I'm inclined to support staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Any other discussion? So, Commissioner Clifton, go ahead.
Wanted to explain my, what was going to be a question to the first speaker. Our first speaker was John David Scobie, is that right? Was that what I heard?
That's correct.
Right. Are you related to the vice mayor, the former vice mayor? It's not going to matter on this vote. He's an important person to me, and I just was wondering. Well, we'll find out later. So this, I know, seems like a real open and shut case to the residents. I don't think it is necessarily. I don't think I've voted for many downzonings in the time I've been on the commission. And I think as an overall position, it's not where we need to be. This was very well presented. I gather that there is, when you look at some of the things that aren't included, it does bring in a lot of diversity of lots and such as that. But that's what I'm trying to get through my mind about how to vote on this. Is this the time in our history when we should be upzoning, given our growth and our capacity to deal with the growth, which has some tools, and we got to get serious about it. I'm not sure, but I'd like to hear other people. But that's just some thoughts I had.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? Commissioner Tibbs?
Yeah, I'm open to other discussion, but yeah, believe it or not, I'm not so opposed to this actually. So, rebel rouser, but I'm actually, in some cases, I feel like the continuity of this is a perfect area. I mean, having driven through this area, I'm not opposed to trying to keep this all together and keeping the community as it is. I almost feel like the way it's peppered up might kind of take away from the character that's there, honestly. So, I think in certain areas, but let me say this right though. I do realize the policy that's in place that, supports what staff has recommended. So I get that. Like I said, this is more just from a contextual standpoint. I do not have a problem with these changes because of what's already existing there right now. So I'm actually okay with it. I almost am not as with the way it's been, the pink, my thing just broke, went dead there. But even with the way the pink is, I almost feel like we've kind of disjointed the community even more with it. So, yeah, I'm not necessarily like this is in stone. I may, vote still to staff recommendation, but I wouldn't mind some other conversation, or even to tell me, more opposition is still fine to me.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other, Council Lady?
Thank you, Chair. I want to get clarification on all the colors, because I understand pink parcels are being removed. What is the gray? Are those parcels that are included?
Yes, those were part of the original request, and then the pink are what we've removed.
And what about the white?
They were never part of the request.
Okay, they were never part of the request. We heard from some neighbors who weren't included that wanted to be included. Are they contiguous with any of the pink areas, or they're outside of this area?
Those would have been people that were included that we have removed with the pink parcels.
And they were removed at their request or at planning's recommendation?
At our substitution.
And what was the reason, or what was the thinking in how you selected which parcels would be removed?
We looked at parcels that were along the arterial.
Okay.
Parcels that were on corner lots, parcels that were larger than average.
Okay. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. In my last term, I introduced or requested a down zone of about 25 parcels that wanted to down zone from RS 20 to, or maybe RS 40 to RS 80. But those were in a T2 rural maintenance policy area. This is a T3 suburban area. So if you could just speak to how this fits the policy with that.
Clarification, I'm sorry, how the removal that we've proposed meets the, okay, go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah, the policy does speak, neighborhood maintenance does speak to preserving character, but it's more of a slow, a check on growth rather than a reversal. So looking at it, we thought maybe this was a balance between those two goals of the policy.
And the RS 40 is an allowable zoning within that T3 neighborhood maintenance.
It would be, yes.
RS 40, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. Well, we have Commissioner Marshall first and then Commissioner Henley. Okay, Commissioner Marshall.
Okay, thank you. So just want my own clarification. The substitute ordinance is in order to comply with the Nashville plan, Nashville Next Plan. Is that the reason for it?
That is staff's recommendation for the policy in this area. So staff reviews requests, we look at the policy, and then we make a recommendation to you all based on our read of the policy for this area. And so our read of the policy for this area as it relates to some adjacency to multifamily residential or the uses or the lots along the arterial, that we felt that it was appropriate to keep a mix of uses and that those would be the most, or a mix of housing and that those would be the most appropriate. And so that is our take on the policy.
Commissioner, if I may, I think one of the challenges with large downzonings and large upzonings, multiple properties, is, as with any application, we're looking at the area, and Lisa's just given you the explanation of sort of how we would evaluate that. I think when it comes to zoning and housing, and this is being discussed right now at council, it's hard to just focus on one small part of the county. You look at the overall need. And we understand from our housing division that there is a need for a diversity of housing. But how you calibrate that, how you prioritize how that occurs is a conversation that we as a whole community need to have. And so I don't think there's just an easy, plain letter answer to the question you're asking. What we know is that this commission historically has prioritized diversity of housing types on arterials and corridors. And we have historically focused on corners and tried to keep the interior of neighborhoods, distinguished from those. So that's the principle that we applied here. But I would acknowledge if you're kind of trying to figure out what lens to use here, it's really tough. And we see that with most large area downzonings and upzonings.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So, trying to make sure I understand. I think I understand what the issue is, but it was something I was going to ask. I can't think of what it is now.
Our director talked too long. Okay, now, if you remember it, we'll get back to you, Commissioner, no problem. Commissioner Henley, your turn. You want to go?
I'll echo some of the appreciation I think my fellow commissioners have expressed. I'm very glad to see the council member here to be able to give that context and express the conversations with the community. I'm slightly torn as well, and I may be the one commissioner that takes the council member up on his offer for potentially a deferral. But I think the process that the community has went through, one, is proactive. I understand I understand seeking out the tools you have to prevent something that you just experienced. And I know, and I don't want to muddy the waters here in terms of the conversation. I'll express my clear kind of preference here, I guess, or the hang up, is I'm looking along Cloverland Drive and seeing quite a few of those parcels had already opted out. And so for me personally, I'm looking along Cloverland Drive and saying those seem to be appropriate to also remain at R40. I understand the challenges when you start to navigate through the neighborhoods. I'll express that I see that. But, you know, in the opening remarks, I believe the council member mentioned taking this approach as opposed to a contextual overlay. And again, as a planning commissioner, my understanding, I believe, is appropriate, but it may not be here. But when I hear the residents coming and speaking, it seems as though they're trying to protect form, character, and some features that feel like what they would consider their community. So to me, that seems maybe more appropriate, maybe not more appropriate in this instance, but it seems more appropriate just off of the comments we've heard. And it does not require a up zone or a down zone. And so I'm just curious as to how we got to this, I guess, proposal as opposed to a contextual overlay.
And Councilman, that was a question for you, so you can come on up. When the commissioners have questions of folks, we want to make sure we get everything on record.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner. So my understanding of the contextual overlay, and that's everything you mentioned is why that was looked at. I was told, the guidance I was given is because there's very, very large houses. There's houses that are 3 stories in the neighborhood. There's houses that are 1 story in the neighborhood. And I was told that because there's such a difference in the variety of housing in the neighborhood and the single family structures, that a contextual overlay might actually cause more friction down the line because there are such different structures there. And it was recommended with the downzoning because of that.
Well, I appreciate it. To me, it seems like this is just truly more of a density control than it is a form control. So I understand that. I mean,
thank you, Councilman.
Yeah, thank you. And again, I appreciate you being here. Again, I think I said kind of where my cards are on this. I think there's probably some more conversation that could happen. I would prefer to not be pressed into a vote now, hearing that, you know, I think there's some questions that we've had and some kind of tornness between some of my fellow commissioners.
Thank you. Commissioner Marshall, did you remember your question?
Yeah, and it was related to what he just said.
Excellent.
I mean, if the councilman asks for a deferral possibility, what does that do? I mean, is that going to open up more conversations internally with us, or what does that do?
Lisa, what does a deferral mean? In this case?
So typically, if you were going to defer, you would defer with the reason for the deferral. And so that would either be to defer to direct staff to have additional conversations with the council member in regards to the proposal. So we would need to understand the sort of point of the deferral. We would have to look at noticing. So for these large area rezonings, often we will combine the noticing that happens for the planning commission and the council, because for these, the department is responsible for preparing, mailing the notices and preparing and posting signs. And so the council public hearing has been noticed. The public hearing that happens here, the noticing for it is required by your rules, but the noticing that is done for council public hearing is per the ordinance. And so we would have to renotice the council public hearing. And so it would have to be remailed and reposted. So generally you would need to tell us, what about the deferral? Those are sort of the other impacts, is that we would just have to do some more redo noticing and signs.
Commissioner Tibbs.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Henley. Contextual overlay, I'd feel a lot more comfortable with contextual overlay. That I do think that could be a valuable tool to what a lot of the residents says. And as you said, it doesn't necessarily fit density, but it hits on so many other things. And although there is a diversity already, as you mentioned, in your neighborhood, that plays into it. So I would also be for deferral, just to study that some more. I mean, if you come back and it doesn't get there, that's your position. But I do feel like a contextual overlay could be really studied. I think you can get a lot of the tools that you are possibly looking for, at least in my opinion.
Thank you. So I usually don't, Commissioner, I don't talk a lot on cases, but on this particular case, I'm pretty passionate about down zonings that are driven by requests from the community and lots of community input and outreach. And I had a down zoning when I was a councilman. This was about 20 years ago. I'm from South Nashville, Creve Hall. I'm very, very familiar with this area. I think I down zoned about 1,800 acres back then, which was thousands and thousands of lots. I did what Councilman Cortez did. I had a lot of community meetings and I listened to the neighborhood, and there was 3 or 4 neighborhood associations that had my back on this particular thing, and they were the ones who requested it. And we are in Creve Hall, where I have my perspective as a council member and a planning commissioner, and South Nashville. A lot of South Nashville is single-family housing. And I get Nashville needs more density. I have probably also voted for more density on this commission than most other people, including big, huge buildings in Midtown. Stuart and I voted for, but Stuart and I maybe didn't vote on everything, but I voted both ways when it made sense. I voted for more density. I voted for pocket density in certain areas, like the councilman said. He has some areas in District 4 that it makes sense. But I know this area well. I like the comments maybe on Cloverland. That makes sense, maybe more of those. But I have always disagreed with the staff on down zoning, and I agree with the staff 99.9% of the time. But on these particular issues, I did the same thing that Councilman Cortez did because the single family is the character of that neighborhood. And, you know, with that much community input, to me, that peppered pattern does not make sense. And I don't think a contextual overlay makes sense when you have very different housing stock. So I believe the councilman is spot on. I believe that whoever requests to opt out, it creates more density and it allows the neighbors to have that input. I know that's not a popular position sometimes. The commission disagreed with me back then, but I got it passed at the council with over 27 votes. I think the only council member that disapproved it was John Summers at the time. And so I felt like I was doing the right thing. Just kidding. I love John Summers. We had a disagreement back then. And so that's my diatribe. I believe in certain areas of town, single family is a diverse housing option for overall. And if you don't have single family homes, well, guess what's going to happen? Folks will move out of the district, the Davidson County, and move to another county. Now, I'm probably not the most popular person about saying that, but I do think in some areas, single-family housing serves an important purpose. And if a downzoning with community input and it meets the character of the neighborhood and it's a continuation of the character of that neighborhood, I think it's appropriate. And so that's my diatribe. And I say that every time we have a downzoning like this. And it's the only time I really speak up a lot, I think. Director, is that right? For the last 12 years that I've been on the commission. But that's my perspective. And like I said, I live in South Nashville. I live in a single family home, and I live in a single family lot, and I live in a single family neighborhood. And I think sometimes that's important. So that's, Commissioner Clifton.
So I'm not sure that I'm supporting upzoning either. I'm not, I don't think.
Well, I think, Commissioner, that the director potentially has an idea for us to satisfy both sides, potentially, I think.
I mean, we're not taking away anybody's zoning, I think, who doesn't want to have it.
So this is, you're not upzoning. This is already a R 40 district.
Right.
It's been that way since the 1970s. And so the request from the council member is to downzone the properties in gray. And so what staff has recommended is that we not downzone certain properties that meet principles articulated in Nashville Next. So one scenario, if the commission, and I sense a bit of division here, so I'm happy to float something, and then if it's not what you want to pursue, then we can defer and keep working on it. But I would argue keeping some of the pink, because we do think that a diversity of housing and a zoning code that supports that is important, though we agree in strategically located places. Property rights in the state of Tennessee, as the chairman just laid out, are also really important. We need to have the confidence from folks that they can sort of anticipate what they would like to do with their own property. So one scenario would be for you to approve what staff has recommended in pink, but basically say in your motion that if the council member wants to withdraw additional properties as he goes through the legislative process at the request of, there were 4 or 5 different residents here who said they wanted to be removed, would trust the council member to do that through the legislative process, then you've sort of preserved what the staff has tried to put forward here, but you're also giving a path. And I would want to clarify, there are rules that Lisa can go into in more detail where if the council changes a recommendation from the commission, that results in a disapproval, I think we would want to try to give them a path. We're giving him a legislative path. So in my mind, we wouldn't want it referred back, and so it would not result in a disapproval. Now, if you don't agree with that, then we can defer and have more discussion, but that is a potential way to honor, or if you do support the staff, but also want to kind of acknowledge the things that the chairman has noted. Yes, sorry.
So Commissioner Clifton, any other discussion?
I believe well, it's been a fascinating discussion. I'm not sure I've always been where I am now. But I do continue to believe that it's not the right time in our history to downzone. I don't think it's a positive thing. I think the director has probably floated an idea that has some merit. I just don't have my arms all the way around it, but I'm prepared to listen to a nicely worded motion and possibly vote for that. Because I don't think it has to be up or down today. I think if we could work some more on it, and I know they don't want to hear that because they've worked very, very hard and in very good faith to try to come up with something. But that I would be for something along the lines of what the director has suggested.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Tibbs.
And thanks for that, Chairman, that's for my first thought with it. So maybe even another compromise from the directors. There are some lots here that I still think, like in a cul-de-sac, the ones that are in a cul-de-sac, there's some that I would probably question even with the, the policy there, because those are, cul-de-sacs are different anyway. So if we were going to stick with just the arterial and the larger lots, maybe, so still kind of recommending what the, potentially. So I guess this goes back more to potential, thinking back to the deferral part of it.
Yeah, Commissioner Tibbs, I think instead of us just making a motion on the fly, because when we start doing that, we've done that before.
Well, no, this is a deferral. This is a back.
Oh, yeah. So I agree with you, Commissioner Tibbs, is that when we do things on the fly, I think you're absolutely correct that we should probably defer and let the staff look at, because I agree with you. There's some lots in here that, and the staff needs to hear this. And the staff team does great. And like I said, I think the commissioners rarely don't agree with the staff interpretation. If we do, it's because there's some underlying issue, or we've been through this before, or there's some history, and so I think getting the discussion out with the commissioners is really great. And I think even Commissioner Clifton brings up some good ideas. And so I think a deferral, it would be appropriate. So the question is, to the team is that, would a one meeting deferral, or are we, what are y'all thinking, Lisa?
So, because the council public hearing will have to be deferred, it is tracking now for March 7th. And so because it will have to be deferred, because our next planning commission meeting is after that date, then I would suggest just go ahead and deferring this for 2 meetings. That would still allow it, and then council member can defer the public hearing for 1 month at council to the April public hearing, and then everything will still be tracking happily along.
And so before we make the deferral, Councilman, I feel like we can get this right, where everybody's kind of happy, as you said, and you can see that we're not all on the same page on this, and I think that a little bit of staff finesse on this would help, and we don't want to get into any legal problems. So Commissioner Tibbs, do you want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we defer this for 2 meetings.
And that's a proper motion, and the reason for that is to try to work out with the council members some additional lots to where we can all agree on the project. That's a proper motion. Is there a second? Second. Any other discussion? Seeing none. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and it's deferred 2 meetings. Councilman, you did great. Thank you for coming down, and thank you for bringing all the neighbors, and we really appreciate y'all coming down. All right, so that finishes all the items on public hearing, and so we're in other business, and we are on, so historic. Commissioner Smith, any update from historic?
We had a great meeting. One thing we did, it looks like passed on consent today, we moved the ability to put a historic sign from 50 years to 25 years. So maybe we'll save a few more signage.
Excellent. We appreciate your service on the Historical Commission. And I know Commissioner Tibbs does, because he's been doing the historical stuff for a long time. All right. Parks and Rec. Parks.
Yes,
Commissioner Henley.
Happy to report. So I was attended the Greenways and Open Space Commission. So yet another service that I have found myself in, but it was a fantastic meeting. Talked about some of the great opportunities that we have, especially in and around our urban core, kind of really looking at our river and our greenway system, working in tandem and as a connector. Also very pleased that the plan to play, which is our master plan for our Parks and Greenways network, is set to be updated, which is fantastic. I actually had the pleasure of working on the original plan to play. So it's really great to know that that has not been seen and become a stagnant document, and we update it. And Parks and Open Space is highlighted very well in our current capital spending plan. And so just really happy to see that. I always like to acknowledge the hard work that council members do in that and working with our department. So just really pleased with that and echoing that from the Parks Board meeting.
And Commissioner, we appreciate your service to the extra park board meetings that you go to. Thank you. Executive Committee report. Just Commissioners, remember we got March is coming up. We've got 2 meetings, and then we're working on trying to set up a workshop. And so we appreciate everybody. We obviously try to do it when y'all get here, when you can be there and schedule it. And we're trying not to wear everybody out, Commissioner Clifton, and want to make sure that it's fair. Other than that, I do also want to say I was happy to go to a Leadership Nashville lunch today, and our esteemed director was there. And I just want to say that it's good to have Director Camp working for us, and she represents us well as a commission, and she did an excellent job. And it was a lot about East Bank. I also saw Councilmember Gamble there, and so it was really great, and I appreciate that, Director, and keep up the good work. And so now we're on to the Director's report. Director.
Thank you for those remarks. I just wanted to direct everybody's attention to the back of your packet. You got a memo from me regarding downtown code initiatives that are underway. We just wanted to update you. If you have any questions about those, please reach out to me or to Joni Williams. Thank you all for your service, and we appreciate everything you do.
Thank you. And Council, we have a legislative update. Council Leader.
Thank you, Chair. I first have to thank Commissioner Henley and the Parks Board for their being so intentional with the connecting the CSP with or showing that the CSP recommendations really connected with the plan to play. And I'm very excited about that. So thank you for your work on that. Legislative update. The compact legislation that the commission passed a couple of months ago did pass on second reading at the last meeting. There was an amendment presented that would have made the bill disapproved from the planning commission perspective, but that amendment failed and the bill was passed as recommended by the commission. So excited that that did go through on second reading, one more reading, and hopefully we can get that adopted.
Thank you, Council Lady. Seeing no other business, is there a motion to adjourn? We're adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.